The Business Buzz is proudly sponsored by Cayman Insurance Center, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. And Kirk Market, experience a world of choice. And by JGP Janitorial, lose the mop, they'll clean the slop. JGP Janitorial, 548-1221.
And now, Radio Cayman presents The Business Buzz, an insightful and fresh take on a variety of issues that impact the local business environment. This is where we address the business topics that matter. Radio Cayman's Business Buzz. Here's your host, Kathy Miller.
Good morning, Cayman. Happy 2025. It's our first show of the Business Buzz for 2025, and I'm quite excited about what the year has ahead of us in the Cayman Islands. Now, today we're going to be picking up on a discussion that I had in December with two millennials and the disengagement and disillusionment that their generation and Generation Z has when it comes to voting in Cayman's democratic process. However, for this morning's show, we're going to have a different perspective, and it's going to be from, I think it's the baby boomer generation, represented by my guest, Miss Theresa Pitcairn. Good morning, Theresa. How are you doing?
Good morning, Kath. And you and I go way, way back.
We do.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
We do.
Thank you so much for having me on the show this morning. And when I listened to the discussion that you had previously, I was, the young people were talking about how they feel now. I didn't get that sense of there being any direction about how we got there. I think
okay.
this is off.
Might be the wrong headphones.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it might be.
I'll adjust you in a second. I'll adjust you in a second.
Yeah, but
so I thought that was kind of interesting. So, your volume's down. So hold on, I got you here.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
No problem.
We're there now.
Oops. No problem. I love that you did reach out to me and you said, I want to continue this discussion and say, how did the youth get there? What are the problems that are prevalent? And, how do you want to start it, really? What really stood out to you from that discussion that we had in December?
Right. So what we heard was stuff like, and I hear it repeatedly, especially with my kids being back home from uni as well. We hear the younger folks talking about, and that particular group that go to university, they have a scholarship that's paid by the government. They come back, they try to get internships and not too much success. And, they put their heads in the sand and they say, well, by the time we come back home, something will change. But what they discover is that having spent 4 years at a university and doing fairly well, they'll come back home. The independence that they enjoyed while they were at university, that's all gone because of the cost of living. No public transport, for example, and that is something that they would take for granted because that's probably what they're accustomed to while they're in university. And they're now finding that they have to spend time with their parents. Some of the times the parents just can't afford to maintain the kind of lifestyle that they may have had even as students, because when you are on a scholarship you do get some funding, additional funding from government and so on. So you have persons coming back home, they're living with their parents, and the parents I suspect are sharing the cost with them of how much it costs to run their household. And they don't have, and we see the cars and stuff, where they're going to get the money to go and buy a car. So some of those very basic things that they start to ask themselves. And what I have observed over the years is that encourages students to get depressed because they feel that they don't have any value in their own country. They feel that they can't compete with others. And that particular comment that I think it was the young man that made that comment, that resonated with me because it took me way back to 1991, for example. In 2000, I had the opportunity to run the campaign for the Honorable Roy Borden and the Honorable Gilbert McLean. And I also had an opportunity to work with the Honorable Ralston Anglin at the time when he was also Minister for Education. And one of the things that I used to say when we were bringing in someone, for example, on a work permit, who has that experience in, and I'll use the law firms because I'm more familiar with that.
Yeah.
So you're bringing in someone 5-10 years PQE, usually maybe now 3 to 7 years PQE, and you're having a graduate from either a law school locally or internationally, and you're asking that particular student to compete with someone who has 7 years experience. And then you're also asking that person with the 7 years experience to train the Caymanian essentially to take that person's job. That has never made any sense. And in fact, it was one of the reasons why the Bahamian government under Pindlin took the position that he did when he was saying, go and train those Bay Street boys and give them an opportunity, for example, in banking. He discovered that wasn't happening. And those same folks who left the Bahamas in the 60s and 70s to develop the economy that we now have are the same persons who have been creating and generating the economy that we enjoy today. And I say that generally because based on the history, those folks brought their Rolodex with them. They knew who the clients were, and they had a frontier community. Cayman was like a frontier community where they could develop the business and grow the business. But they also came with certain expectations because they didn't want to have that same experience that they had in the Bahamas repeated here in Cayman. So that was a sort of the genesis of how our offshore business, for example, got started. Now, we then developed the Caymanian Protection Law, and we saw what Mr. Orman was trying to do because he recognized what this could lead to in the future. And
Can you give me a little bit of info on the Caymanian Protection Law? 'Cause
well,
I'm not fully aware of it.
oh,
So you have to educate me on
right.
this matter.
So it's in a nutshell, it was designed to quote unquote take care of Caymanians, not just within the employment situation, but was to make them first and foremost whenever situations arose to give them opportunities. That's generally what
Okay.
and of course that morphed into what we have today as the immigration law.
Okay.
Right. So he recognized what could happen if you develop an economy that wasn't cognizant of where it was going, because the plan that we have now, for example, that's way history. That's out there with the dinosaurs. And this is what I learned. I learned a word from my daughter when she was trying to explain something to me from some data analyzing that she was doing. And we were having this conversation, and she was saying, Mom, one of the concerns that we as Gen Zs have is we have a gerontocratic rule of old people.
I feel like this is a new word.
So I said, Jazz, repeat that for me again.
Yes.
I said, you lost me with that. So she says, Mom, no, that's gerontocratic. And what that really means, Mom, is that you've had people in leadership for some 30, 40 years, decades in office. They are accustomed to where they were when they got started, but they haven't ensured that when the country grew, they also grew with them and were cognizant of all of the necessities that would be required in order to ensure that we educate the people and make sure they're educated to meet the needs of the community. So she's, in a sense, what she was saying, Mom, I think they have lost touch with the community, not necessarily because they don't care, but because things have happened at such a great speed in the Cayman Islands that their focus was on other things. And even though persons like yourself, because I know I raised it for decades. I know Roy raised it for decades. Gilbert raised it. Frank and Steve did. What are the plans? Where do Caymanians fit in this? And you would hear all the time, who are you developing these islands for?
Yes.
You'd hear leadership say that development, 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 but it wasn't development that was actually cognizant about how that also embraced the local people to ensure that they participated in the wealth as well.
Right.
So that has always been one of the concerns that I've had. So it's not surprising when the kids come home now, and we've never really had a history of activism in a university environment as well. The other day I was asked to deliver one of the keynote speeches for UCCI when they launched this particular journal for students, and it's called Students' Voices. So I took the time to read what the students were talking about. Now, when I opened the discussion, I said, a number of things that I'm going to raise today will make us a little nervous and it'll make us a little uncomfortable. But what I really admired about UCCI was the fact that it gave the students safe space to speak their minds freely, because Cayman, I believe, is a really conservative community, and we try to be nice. Now, there's a whole history about why Caymanians placate certain folks that come here, and they assume that people who come here have superior knowledge than they do. So we kind of like bow down, cow down, and that sort of thing. And I've never quite understood that, maybe because, I was raised by a single mom. My mom was Cayman's first policewoman, so that household is a little different. So I've always, when I had that opportunity to have that discussion with the students, almost invariably, every one of these articles that the students wrote about spoke to these issues. They were broad-based issues about, one, how they're not integrated, two, how they don't know what a future will look like. And then you have this cadre of different students who have lived here all of their lives. They don't have Caymanian status, but will be eligible for Caymanian status. So on the one hand, they don't even feel as though they're included in the Caymanian community. And something that we don't like discussing, for example, race and how it impacts decisions that are made. I know people are really, really uncomfortable around that. And, so what you're now seeing is that these students, for example, have that freedom to share their thoughts. Historically, that would never, ever have happened. So you have to figure out then what is going on at the university college. And I sometimes, I'm what they call a friend of the university, so I try to help wherever I can. But what is good in that a number of the areas and issues that they raise, which touch on what we're talking about with voter apathy today, because they want to participate, but they feel that they don't have a right to participate. And that is really interesting, because on the one hand, they are made to feel as though Caymankind is really just words. So, and they tend to hold the view that Cayman is xenophobic. Now, there's another perspective, and this touches on why the Caymanian kids now feel that they don't have a space here, they don't have a place here, so why bother? And voting was not something that, was, they would hear about voting, but it was never something that was articulated as really as something that is empowering. They heard people speak of voting, and you go to the polls and so on. And then the millenniums that you were speaking of, what they saw was, for example, 2017. They don't realize that from 1970, for example, we've been having the turtle meat politics, in that people go in, they look for opportunities, and they make promises that they don't keep.
Yeah.
So, when someone, and recently, discussions have been around the role of a manifesto. And manifestos are just words. People make promises that they simply do not keep. And you have to sit back and reflect. And why is it that it's so difficult to keep those promises, even if there was an intention to keep the promise? In 2017, you had a merger between the PPM and the CDP. So we had the Honorable Alden McLaughlin as Premier and the Honorable Makiba Bush as Speaker. And that was an unholy alliance to begin with. In let's be real. we had the same thing in 2017, right? And so we had the PPM and the CDP with Mr. Bush as Speaker, and in 2021 we had 41 independent candidates running out of 50. So the independents don't work because they may make promises that they can't keep, even if they wanted to keep it, and they're busy scuffling, trying to find where is it they're going to end up. And you have to understand that you have human frailties, human conflicts. How are you going to best navigate something like that?
Right. I think when you bring up the point of the independents don't work, we've greatly seen that in our government in these past 4 years with the 4 major changes that have happened. We have to go to a commercial break right now, but when we come back, I will let you continue. You've said so many great points, and I want you to continue on them.
All right. Thank you.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series. Brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
The coconut industry on the sister islands boomed between 1890 to 1915, with annual exports exceeding 1 million per year. In 1906, the industry peaked with the sister islands, accounting for the entire export of the Cayman Islands. A coconut disease had previously killed off all of the trees in Grand Cayman. The industry was so successful that the government of the day went as far as to impose a special export duty. However, on Friday the 13th, 1915, a hurricane of unprecedented severity devastated the island of Cayman Brac, rendering most homeless and decimated 98% of the coconut trees on the Brac and 40% of those on Little Cayman. To add insult to injury, the coconut disease that struck Grand Cayman would soon arrive in the sister islands. During the 1920s and 1930s, efforts were made to revive the coconut industry, but the efforts were modest and the industry failed to reach its previous level of prosperity.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, a history of the Cayman Islands and their people by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way, positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
I'm Michael Webster.
And I'm Denise Brown of Cayman Insurance Center.
Family is not the most important thing, it's everything.
We have worked with the community and their families on protecting themselves for the future.
Whether it's providing top-rated life insurance
or protecting your family's household investment.
From our family to yours, we understand and we care.
I'm Denise Brown. Call me at 814-7229.
And I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
We are Cayman Insurance Center.
Specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services at an affordable rate. We are Michael and
Denise at Cayman Insurance Center.
Call today.
Dear Jamal, happy holidays. Hope you enjoyed this fishing rod I got you for Christmas. I know fishing isn't your thing, but hey, I really wanted a chance to win 100,000 True Blue points. Merry Christmas.
Gifts for them, getaways for you. This holiday season, get a chance to win 100,000 True Blue points when you spend $100 or more with your JetBlue card by CIBC Caribbean. Use your card today and you might fly very soon with JetBlue. Terms and conditions at www.cibcfcib.com/JetBlueGetaways.
At the Family Resource Center, we recognize the growing concern with healthy and safe digital use for children. Parenting the Digitally Safe Child, a 4-week workshop, is designed for parents and caregivers who want to learn more about healthy screen use and how to keep their children and teens safe on all platforms. National Drug Council and others will guest speak to enhance parents' learning. Starting January 10th at 12 to 1 p.m. on Zoom. Contact Family Resource Center at frc@gov.ky to reserve your spot for this free service.
The Business Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller. Business Buzz.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Business Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and in studio I have with me Theresa Pitcairn. We are discussing voter apathy, and Theresa has laid out so many points in the first 15 minutes of our show. There's so many, and I'm going to let her continue to speak, but a few of those points that stood out to me that were discussed in my December show with millennials when we were talking about voting and why there's such disengagement for basically the 35s and under, especially 24 and under when it comes to voting. Lack of a development plan is definitely one of them, and you had mentioned that as well. So, but you were on a roll, Theresa, so I want you to continue.
The thing is, we need to know what our future is going to look like. Mm-hmm. I remembered one of the things that both Roy and the Honorable Roy Borden and the Honorable Ralston Anglin discussed was how are we going to track what our students' ability, what their interests are, to ensure that we have a proper educational system, whether it's tertiary education, whether we have money in place to send them abroad. Not unlike what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore, because he was a man that was driven. He understood, and that's the thing. We understand that, but education was not something that was valued. And when I speak of the Honorable Roy Borden, again, my memory takes me back to him being trained as an educator.
Yes.
And when he came back, because of the powers that be, this man had to go and put up blocks and build houses. And someone said, no, this is just not on. Let's give him another opportunity. And this is the reason why the Honorable Roy Borden ended up, being responsible for one of the motor, I think Nissan was it? I can't remember, but operators that we have here.
Okay.
So it's also a part of our history where we actually create environments which make it impossible for our own people to succeed, even when they're capable. So
why do you think that is?
So I was just sharing with you. I don't, to be honest, I don't know if that is something that I will ever understand. A friend of mine said to me recently, and I say this not to put, to tap my back. He said, but Theresa, there's only one of your kind out there, because this particular person thinks that I'm fair, I'm a straight shooter, and he has seen the licks I've taken trying to hold a set of standards where we want to share with our kids in particular, because I always believe we have to be, as parents, we have to be advocates for our children, and children learn what they see in the home. And that's another issue too, because when the economy was developing, Caymanian women went and they worked in the business place. That was mom, that was auntie, that was cousin, that was grandma. Everybody went into the service business, and who was in the service business was busy developing the offshore industry. So that we then brought in other persons to raise our children, giving them different and separate. I know when I work hard, I barely got any time, much less. But when you're deliberate, and when you take that moment and you say, hey, look, you got to make sure that certain values actually maintain the kids to. And so all of that stuff, which is why I was saying to you at the very beginning, do we talk about the history of as to why we are where we are today? The other thing that I was thinking about when, I said to you, this friend had this conversation. He says, Theresa, I would much rather have a foreigner make a decision about me, and it's more likely to be fair than relying on a Caymanian to be fair, because there's just this issue of distrust that is among us.
That's a scary thing for him to have said.
But it's,
or your friend to have said. I think it was a man.
So, that is something for Caymanians to consider. And I'm often reminded of what Commissioner Gerard said about Caymanians, and he used a maritime philosophy comparison. Caymanians on a boat, everybody want to be leaders, and rather than choose someone who they rely on, and this is after Caymanians have a history of being really good mariners, and they were in huge demand, and that's globalization obviously changed all of that, right? So he was saying, I don't understand Caymanian people. They would rather go down in the engine room and mash that up so that everybody drowns rather than choose one. So you see that behavior play out in the politics.
Yes.
And as long as that person goes and gives that tick, that's as far as the say goes. And that is so sad, because you go into the voting box, you go in hands on heart thinking that, you're going in, you're going to vote for this person. And I think that this is somebody that's going to make good of the promises made and so on. But they then have their own separate and different agenda as well. So there's this huge lack of trust where leadership is concerned, and even putting together a team of leadership, because you're now seeing you have this group, you have that group, and so on and so forth. And it's so difficult to actually develop two separate or three separate, because we have a parliamentary democracy, and that's a part of the problem as well. The way in which we are organized, it's hard, it seems as though, to put people together whose values are aligned. I said to someone the other day, I could work with the devil himself as long as he or she says, for example, I'm committed to dealing with things like the cost of living. Now, if that was easy to deal with, everybody would have dealt with a long time ago. But there are things that obviously can be done to reduce it for the average person on the street. So deal with the basic things and agree to those things and commit. Let the people know that this is what you stand for, no matter what.
Right.
But we don't get that.
I want to interrupt you there, because yes, we can work together if our values don't align, because as long as our priorities on the subjects that we are tackling, that we know what those priorities are, that's how we work together. And that was, again, brought up in that show in December when it was a comparison between the private and the public sector. And the young lady that I had on the show said that the big difference is we are efficient in the private sector because everybody in the C-suite, they know what the priorities are and they're working to get it done. It doesn't matter what we may think of each other. It doesn't matter necessarily what our own personal values are and ethics are, but we know what the end goal is and we're all trying to work together to get it done.
It stops at the dollars. Listen, working in a law firm, for example, and you have a whole plethora of different personalities that are in there. But every lawyer knows when they're doing their hours and so on, what is expected from the partnership. And so it's at least people share that in common, having an understanding of how much making the law firm profitable is the end game. But you see, that's not necessarily the case with our leaders when they go into office. They are on different agendas, different targets, and that's one of the problems, not just with independents, because we've seen it also when we've have quote-unquote groupings. And what we don't talk about, which is what the Honorable Ezard Miller used to talk about all the time, is that we don't hear about how the handlers actually influence the leaders. Because if you're running for office and someone gives you, and I'll only use a small amount, say $10, and that $10, can build a street, and that actually makes your campaign successfully. When that handler comes and taps you on the shoulder and says, I gave you $10 to get elected, I need a well down here, I need a beach down here, I need a hotel up there, you had better stand and deliver.
Oh, they own you.
That we don't want to talk about that, and it is so integral to this community, whether or not we succeed and make decisions that are in the best interest of the community. And they're not held accountable. Some of I've heard stories of the suitcases with the cash and how the cash goes left, right, and center. So these are our leaders accepting cash in order to get elected, so that anybody who wants to do something and they want to do it straight, have a sense of integrity, have a sense of moral responsibility it's easier for that person to go through the eye of a needle, to quote some of the Bible verses, than for them to get elected, simply because they have integrity.
Yeah.
So
that's a great point to end on before we go to the 8 a.m. news. So we're going to go to the 8 a.m. news. After the news, we will be taking calls. I just want to remind our callers of the numbers, 1-800-534-8255. You can WhatsApp 925-3261. Call 949-6990 or 949-8037.
Radio K-Man time check now, 8:01. This time check brought to you by our friends at Foster's.
When you're on the go, let the Island Supermarket shop for you.
To start, head to fosters.ky/go.
Then shop all your favorite products online, from produce and seafood to grocery and frozen, all picked by our team of shoppers ready to go.
Choose next day curbside pickup from Foster's Camana Bay or delivery island-wide.
To get your order started, visit fosters.ky/go.
This is Groceries on the Go.
And we are Foster's Go. Shop online anytime.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Caymanbrack and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Good morning. With a look at your latest news, I'm Jevi Ebanks. Cody Antonio McLaughlin is set to appear before the summary court this morning to face 2023 and 2024 charges. From 2023, he faces 2 counts of causing fear or provocation of violence, 2 counts of intentional harassment, alarm, or distress, and 1 count of insulting the modesty of a woman. More recently, from 2024, he faces charges of threats to kill, common assault, damage to property, criminal trespassing, and causing fear or provocation of violence, as well as obscene publication. He's set to appear before Chief Magistrate Angeline Hernandez this morning at 10 a.m. The Central Planning Authority's first meeting for 2025 takes place tomorrow. Here's Radio Cayman's Carsley Fuller with more.
Of note is a $12 million project for 34 apartments, a pool, cabana, and a seawall on South Church Street in Georgetown that's currently zoned as Beach Resort Residential. This project is facing public objections. In addition, the Department of Environment notes that the site features Iron Shore coastline and is next to a marine reserve. And about 50% of the site is proposed to be covered by areas of hard standing, buildings, and parking area included. And as such, quote, drainage of the site and surrounding area is likely to be a concern. In its initial initial comments, the DOE recommended, quote, appropriately designed permeable or porous paving where possible to prevent runoff into the marine protected area. Also, with the extent of seawater incursion exceeding 150 feet from the mean high water mark, they suggested that no habitable structures would be placed at least within that zone. The CPA will also consider the right-of-way to the sea, along with setbacks being proposed for the project. Another is an uncontested application for a 144 residential subdivision with a lake on Curlew Drive in Boddentown. This property is currently vacant, and the CPA will consider comments from the National Roads Authority with regards to stormwater management and from the Water Authority related to the proposed lake depth. Other applications include one for land clearing and road construction on an unnamed road off Austin Connolly Drive in East End for agricultural purposes, an application for a commercial plaza on the Linford-Pearson Highway west of Mangrove Point Apartment Complex and just north of Vela, along with an application for a walkway to the dock at East End Heritage Beach. Reporting for Radio Cayman News, I'm Carsley Fuller.
Thank you, Carsley. You can find the full agenda for tomorrow's public meeting online at planning.ky. 2024 was a big year for Plastic Free Cayman. The organization dedicated to clearing trash off of local beaches saw nearly 500 volunteers remove over 860 bags of garbage. Overall, they cleared more than 5,330 pounds of trash from Cayman's beaches. Plastic Free Cayman is promising an even more successful 2025. That is your latest news. I'm Jevi Ebanks. Now to the BBC for headlines around the world.
BBC News with Danielle Yawowiecka. A powerful earthquake in China's Tibet region has destroyed hundreds of buildings and killed at least 95 people. State media say many houses collapsed in mountain villages around the city of Shigatse, which is holy for Tibetan Buddhists. The French President Emmanuel Macron has laid a wreath at the former offices of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo to mark 10 years since a deadly Islamist attack there. 12 people were shot dead that day, including well-known cartoonists and 2 policemen. The far-right French politician Jean-Marie Le Pen has died. He was 96. Le Pen founded France's National Front Party in 1972 and came to international attention 30 years later when he led a surprise challenge for presidency, losing to Jacques Chirac. A South Korean court has issued a new arrest warrant for the impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. The Corruption Investigation Agency said it was determined to detain Mr. Yoon. Hundreds of Presidential Security Service and military guards formed a human barrier last week to prevent Mr. Yoon's arrest. A Chinese filmmaker, Chen Pin-lin, has been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for his documentary about widespread demonstrations against COVID-19 restrictions. The president of São Tomé and Príncipe has dissolved the government, citing its failure to address the country's challenges. Microsoft's boss has pledged to invest $3 billion in India to expand artificial intelligence and cloud computing services. Satya Nadella said it was the firm's largest investment in the country. Scientists in Australia have developed a new method of combating insect pests by genetically engineering males to pass poison onto females during mating. Called the toxic male technique, the process sees modified males carry venom from spiders and sea anemones. BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Boddentown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin are the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Boddentown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman with the latest up-to-date, accurate news and information. For your convenience, the headline news will be repeated on our sister station, Breeze 105.3 FM, weekdays at 8:30 a.m. Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or download the Radio Cayman app in the App Store or log on to www.radiocayman.gov.ky and stay connected to what's happening in the community. Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman is proud to continue to serve our island community. During the last Lionistic year, they successfully carried out community projects like the Prostate and Colon Cancer Awareness Campaign, site screenings, spelling bees, swim meets, and their community food pantry. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman looks forward to continuing their service during the 2024-2025 Lionistic year and for many more years to come. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman. Where there's a need, there's a lion, serving the community for over 50 years.
Parents of teens will learn strategies to prevent risky behaviors, encourage healthy development, and positive behaviors through the Parenting Teens program. Starting January 14th at 12 to 1 p.m. on Zoom, parents can expect to see an increase in a positive parent-child relationship when strategies are applied at home. Contact Family Resource Center at frc@gov.ky to reserve your spot for this free program.
Just about 10 minutes after 8 is a look at your latest weather as provided by the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. A cold front across the Yucatan Channel is expected to move just west of our area by tomorrow morning. Isolated showers associated with this system is likely to impact the Cayman Islands overnight into early morning as the frontal boundary becomes stationary and gradually dissipates. Our forecast calls for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers in the evening. Temperatures will rise to the mid-80s. Winds will be east to northeast at 5 to 10 knots, increasing and becoming 10 to 15 knots by the afternoon. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Later tonight, partly cloudy skies with cloudy spells and a 40% chance of the late night shower. Temperatures will fall to the mid-70s. Winds will be northeast at 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. We're in a high tide. Low tide is coming up at 10:41 this morning. It's going to be high at 3:53 this afternoon. Low at 10:56 tonight. Sunset this evening is at 6:02. And the outlook is for moderate to fresh winds and seas through Friday morning as a high-pressure system builds behind the front. That's your latest weather right here on Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman. Biggest variety in the morning. Biggest variety.
RC Fusion.
Following the 10 a.m. news headline.
Brought to you by TCE Paint Shop, 27 Godfrey Nixon Way.
RC Fusion.
The Georgetown Farmers Market. It's time you start eating local. The market at the Cricket Grounds.
My Kinda Cleaners. Call or WhatsApp 326-3379 for your free quote today. Biggest variety in the morning. Radio Cayman.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
Very quick look at the traffic situation, of course. The majority of traffic coming into the Georgetown area, especially on the Linford Pearson Crew Road and coming through South Sound and through Walker's Road as well. And through South Church Street into Seafarers Way. Of course, Shannon Road, seeing moderate traffic, similar along Eastern Avenue, Godfrey Nixon Way to the Butterfield Roundabout as well. With traffic moving the northward bound lane, some light traffic coming off the S.L. Tibbetts, and of course, North Sound Road back to Dorsey Drive and also to Roberts Drive as well, seeing some traffic in that vicinity. Of course, heading to the eastern districts, you got moderate light traffic as you make your way eastbound or towards north side. Cayman Bracken, Little Cayman, light traffic this time of the morning. Buckle up, stay safe. Getting some cloudy, overcast conditions on the outside with the cold front moving in. Of course, your traffic report brought to you by our good friends at Subway.
Did you know ordering your favorite sandwich from Subway just got easier? Yeah, picture this. No more waiting in line. No more fussing with cash. Just a delicious taste of Subway at your fingertips. With our new app, ordering your go-to sub is as easy as a few taps on your phone. Plus, receive exclusive deals and earn loyalty points with every purchase made on the app. Download the new Subway app today and get ready to ditch the lines and drive straight into your flavor. Visit the App Store or Google Play Store on your mobile phone and search for Subway Cayman Islands. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
The Business Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Good morning and welcome back to the Business Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and in the studio with me I have guest Theresa Pitcairn. We are talking about voter apathy, and if you were listening in the first half hour, Miss Theresa had a whole lot to say, raised a lot of very good points, and I want to let people know that our phone lines are open. If you would like to give us a call and chime in on the conversation, the numbers to call are 1-800-534-8255. You can WhatsApp 925-3261. That's a WhatsApp message or call. You can call 949-6990 or 949-8037. Now, to pick up on where we left right before the 8 a.m. news, Ms. Theresa, from everything that you shared, why would young Caymanians even bother voting?
So
it was a dismal kind of a picture there.
Yeah. And at some point in time, we have to educate our kids about the value and importance of their voice, having a voice. Now, they probably don't see it working anytime because they say, well, you know, our parents do it, our parents have tried, and, you know, at the end of the day, it's all for naught. But I would actually say that we have a recent experience with the ports the other day when we had that referendum, and we saw how important it was when you are committed to an agenda and you are focused and you want to have a certain outcome and your hand on heart and you believe that this is something that is important. You saw that that was successful. Yeah. And I think that is something that we can try to develop with the younger folks because, things as they start. I was sharing with you during the break. You know, we have two classes in Cayman. We don't have a middle class, and we're slowly degenerating to either a wealthy class and a very, very, very poor class. And nothing seems to be, or at least I haven't seen any steps to take any policy steps to actually address it. And to be frank, I think people are afraid of it, and they just don't know what to do. There are things that can be done, but that's going to take significant courage to put a pause on where we are now. You can't really go back.
What are those things that you think that can be done?
No, not this morning. I'm gonna. Come on,
you were saying, Kathy, we're gonna get into it.
Kathy, I can't give you every little something.
All right.
But there are steps that we can take that actually takes off some of the burden from the average person on the street. But it's going to take collaboration. It's going to take a lot of work with people. But people actually committed to getting this done. You know, I'm not sure if people are there yet, and you know, the math isn't mathing. And again, another term I pick up from these people that live in my house with me say that they're my kids. The math isn't mathing.
Yeah.
Mathing. But one of the concern I had when I was sharing with you is that the way the community is built, especially in the professional environment, you know, you're now having a situation where you have a group of people, because of how the community evolved, the economy evolves over the last 20 years or so, who are wealthy and who can actually afford to live with a certain standard. Caymanians may make up a 1% in that group. And a friend called me the other day who is a local professional. She applied for a job with one of the major firms, and she said that she was Caymanian. She didn't get pinged back. She then sent it using a different surname, her married name, and she put that she was Caymanian American, which she is. She got the job the same day. So no, listen.
Wow.
No, listen. No,
I believe that. I know friends who have kept their married last name.
We have to be honest about these things, but Caymanians are afraid to look at the white elephant in the room. So they'll say to people like me, "Why is it I'm causing trouble?" I ain't causing no trouble.
No.
I am speaking the truth, and I'm saying that if we don't do something, land is finite, as I've said to you during the break. Where Caymanians gonna get in the land from? The cost of land. One of the things with our heritage is always wanting to save up enough money, buy your land, have your own property, your own home, live independently. That's like a dream now for Caymanians.
Yeah, it is.
You know, so
a faraway dream.
like really far. And
We have a caller.
Sorry, go on. Thank
we
you so
got a
much.
caller. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Business Buzz.
Yes, good morning.
How are you doing today?
Hi,
Happy New
Dr.
Year.
Frank.
Good. Yeah, I think it's a good way to start the discussion the way that Theresa started the discussion, because the hard questions have to come forward if we're going to get sensible answers. Most times in this country, we disguise what we really know as true. And we have a way of trying to satisfy it. And that means always that we have to lie about the reality as we know it. Everybody is offended. But you can't have a democracy if you don't have transparency and honesty and integrity. So how do we get to that point if it's not at the basis of our society? And one of the things that I know is that when I came back here 47 years ago, I came back here to take up a job with the National Council of Social Services, which is now called the National Council of Voluntary Organizations. And the reason for employing me with a PhD was because the British government knew at the time, through a report of Professor Prosser, that the Cayman Islands social fabric, basic structure, was weak. The societal basis was weak. And with rapid economic development and immigration and all of those types of factors that follows economic progress, it would collapse. It would enter chaos, which is the point that we're at today in terms of the Caymanian society. There are a lot of expatriates here that are not suffering from the same social illness, but we are, because we did not appreciate synergy. We did not appreciate that to create a society out of individuals and families, there had to be values that bound us together. And we did not have, therefore, the structuring of the society or of the individuals within the society that you had in the economically more advanced Caribbean territories because of slavery and the productivity of those slave systems at the time. So hierarchy, organized behavior is important. We didn't have it. So the whole idea of going down in the engine's room and destroying the damn engine so that nobody could be captain besides you and being willing to drown in order to see that the other one didn't get it is a reality. But you have to study the sociology. I've been a sociologist in this country practicing, and I can't say anything because anything I say is against the interest of the ignorant. And Plato, the Greek philosopher Plato, describes this in his analogy of the cave. You have to have people who are willing to uphold knowledge, idealize those values. We don't have people who idealize those values, and we see why our school children are being defeated in our schools, because those that go with those values of learning, oh, that little sissy, oh, that little one, that little... No, come on. Let's face it. Let's look at the mirror. Let's use the social mirror and look at ourselves. Then we can talk about politics, because the politics is going to be a reflection of who we think we are.
Yeah.
You see? So when somebody thinks Theresa Lewis, oh, hear her now, talking like that, she thinks she's white, you know. You look at her, you see her, boom. This is it. Now that we have all these people around us that are very prepared to compete with us and eliminate us if necessary, they're the ones who got the houses, they're the ones who got the land, they're the ones who are successful because they're like a team. They work together as a team. My fear at this particular time is because of the whole idea of the oligarchy all over the world taking over the rich. And we see that happening here and right now in Cayman in this election more than before. That people are coming in with their big bags of money, not necessarily with integrity, not necessarily with a track record of paying attention to the middle class, but to paying attention to making sure that those people with money have more money and those people with no money have less money. So it's set in a way that unless these people are willing to sit down and intellectually discuss their situation, they're not going no place because they're coming with short-sightedness, not long-sightedness. So you get no longevity out of short-sightedness. And yet they exclude people like myself. They exclude people like myself because I'm not going to lie to my intellect. I wasn't trained that way. I am not running in this election. I would never run in this election or run in Cayman again, not at my age. But I have some knowledge and some experiences that these people completely prefer to wrecking the bloody engine rather than say, okay, Dr. McFeel, he's lived up here, he's lived down here, he's lived on the street, he's lived there, and he has a good wide perspective of our society. We also know about the professional criminal element.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of the biggest problems we have here. What's going on in the judiciary?
Yeah.
The relationship between the judiciary and the law firm in this particular country. So that the poor people at the end of the day, even when it comes to mortgages and foreclosures and all of those types of things, they have no preferential treatment. They are put at the bottom of the priorities of the leaders of the country. The people are put at the bottom of the priorities of the country. And how are you going to change that? By people coming and saying, oh, we're going to pay you a little bit of money to come campaign for us. We're going to pay you a little bit of money for this and that. But we're not going to pay you nothing for ideas because ideas don't count in the Cayman Islands. Politics, what counts is who is going to be able to get something, because that's the way we trained up the people. That's the way I've seen it for the last 47 years in this country, that people are loyal to you for what they can get and not for what they can give. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I was blessed enough to have had the American high school education, American college education, and my values are different. And I am confronting those people who continue to believe that we are going to solve the problem by telling people like Theresa Lewis Pitcairn that she thinks she's white because she speaks sense and because she pays attention to knowledge and all that sort of thing. That tell people like myself and Dr. Steve McFeel and Roy Barton and Gilbert McLean and all of that sort of stuff, because we will not elevate knowledge in this country. And until we do that, and that be what people look up to, not what they look down on, we are going to continue to have a deficit in this society, because nobody is going to accept ever the analysis that comes from people who are studied in areas that we need to be able to have knowledge of in order to run a successful and harmonious society. The question of immigration in this country is the big question. But if people are just looking at it from their personal perspective, they're not looking at it from a historical perspective in terms of immigration in the world. They are shortchanging themselves because they are stuck at a system of knowledge that rejects anything that differs. And if there's no differences between people, then there's no synergy at the end of the day, and therefore there's no advancement. I'm going to just leave it right there. I'm congratulating Theresa. I would like to see her run. I would like to see her voice in our parliament, House of Parliament, and I would love to see people stop selling their votes for turkeys and ham and this little thing and this little thing. The Caymanian people are responsible for the state of chaos. And I told them, when we have chaos in our families, we're going to have chaos in our communities. When we have chaos in our communities, we'll have chaos in our political system. When we have chaos in our political system, We will ruin our political system, which is the basis of the stability, has been the basis of why we are successful
today
as a financial service.
Exactly.
They need to protect our stability, and they can only do that by defending reason and reasonable judgments.
Dr. Frank, don't hang up as yet. Ms. Theresa, if you wanted to respond to
No, I was only going. It's a good. I was going to mention the role of the judiciary as well, because Kathy was saying, "Is there anything else you want to touch on?" And because she was saying that in the context of, why should our young people feel different? Why should they feel motivated to even vote? I don't know if anybody's paying attention to how decisions are made where young people are concerned when they go to the votes. And I'm not sure who's paying attention to the persons who are actually going into our prisons these days and so on. And there's a whole, people don't even want to use the correct description about who we're actually sending to our prisons these days. And I'll dovetail that too, Kathy, with the issue that you raised in when we were having a conversation about whether or not, why is it that young people don't want to do jury duty? Because the bias and the prejudice, or the ostensible bias and prejudice, meaning that is how people see it, they feel that they don't get a fair shot. Many young people feel that way, and they are disenchanted with the system the way it is today. So you can't expect them to want to participate when they feel, one, when their parents go to vote, it don't make a difference. Two, why does it even make sense for them to even try and go? And when they see their own friends going into jail, and then they're being asked to cause judgment on their own people that they went to school with, or what, that is foolishness.
Yeah.
And this is what bothers me, because imagine what this community would look like if more was spent actually discovering why is it that kids that age, because and the speeding and the accidents and all of that, why are we having such frequency of that? I mean, you can see how emotional I'm getting, because that touches me as a parent as well. So I don't know, there's something, the math isn't mathing, and too many of our own children are going into prison. They don't get the kind of representation that they need in order to get fair representation. Fair. And they see in the chats that I'm on, I don't really say a lot, but you see that concern every day, over and over and over. So again, I can appreciate why the young people aren't necessarily motivated. They've never had the type of leadership that, and people are going to get upset with me when I say that, leadership that encourages them to be someone and to actually be relevant in their own community. We don't see that. Some people get it. And, even with the kids that are going, like I said, going to university and they're coming back, and some will actually make it. But there's that whole broad spectrum of them that's not going to make it. How do you think that they're going to feel? Mm-hmm. So they're going to mash up the dollar house. I mean, I've said this before. People don't like hearing the truth. But if we continue down this path and actually don't step back, take a moment and pause and reflect and actually talk about the things that Dr. Frank is talking about, we're just setting ourselves up for doom. So I'm just saying what is evident around us.
And don't be afraid to say it. The truth hurts. It is what it is. And the math isn't mathing, as you're saying. Dr. Frank, I got to ask you to hold on to your thought. We have to go to a commercial break right now, but we will return to continue this discussion in just a couple minutes.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Radio Cayman News.
This motion for the government to consider may seem extreme to some.
This is more than a transport plan. It's a bold and transformative vision for modern and accessible Cayman Islands.
Targeting unsafe drivers who who speed or drive under the influence.
I can't find any other word for it other than disgraceful.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
The Business Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to the Business Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and in studio I have with me Theresa Pitcairn. We are discussing voter apathy. I believe we still have Dr. Frank on the phone. Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Frank, I do want to ask you something. You did say that you are never going to run again at your age. However, I'm interested to know what your approach would be to the younger generations to try to understand their stance on voting or to get them more involved in their community.
Yeah. Well, I was a youth officer in London in the 70s, and I came back here with a PhD really in youth studies. I started studying the first formation of gangs in Notting Hill Gate, North Kensington. And so I have followed this all my life here. I have followed what Theresa is saying about the prison and the situation with the judiciary and everything. I'm very up to par because I still have my contacts on the streets. I still have the contacts in the prison. I did a lot of research with Sheldon Brown and different things. So I understand our system. I am a critical communication analyst. I was trained that way, and that's what I exercise. I don't do my research like standing away from people and asking them questions. No, I listen. And I be there, and I understand at the end of the day. Now, the problem the young people have, especially those from the poorer classes, is that they always view politics from the perspective of their parents. And the perspective of their parents is that you vote for the person who can give you something. You see? So they're trained in that. Now, we have had gangs. Now, we have gangs. We have very organized gangs. And we have very organized gangs because we have a police system and a court system that organizes them and helps to organize them and preserves them that they want, that is working for a particular segment of the society. So these people will obviously play a role in this election. We see that already from some of the candidates that are coming forward. People are not ready for this. I am. I know it was coming. So they might be able to influence many of those young people to change their attitude towards the politics. So I know the people because I've been on the streets, and I stayed on the streets long enough to know how the street is connected to the establishment, how it's connected to the prosecution, to the police, to the judiciary. It is so damn interconnected at this moment, people would be blown away.
And the drug trade, let's not forget that.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it, because all these people are involved in those things that I'm talking about. Not everybody in these organizations, these institutions. Well, we have it because we go to the prison. I was in charge of had a constitutional responsibility for prisons for 4 years. You think I didn't learn anything about how the prison system works? And why we have drugs there always? Why professional criminals can run their organizations from the prison? So we have a system that nobody monitors. When the British government monitors it, it treats it as its secret security type of information. Okay? Because they're here, they're looking, but they are not letting us know anything as a result of what they find out or where we should be more vigilant, because they're not going to become transparent about their presence and their interests and their form of activities. They are not going to do this. So when you have a double system where you have a colonial system with a colonial interest, then you have a local system with a local interest, and they believe that they're working together, but at the end of the day, they're not working together, because the colonial system is working to make sure that it is not accused internationally of being involved in certain things that they are involved with. And we have these kind of complexities in a society that is a financial service society, which has a very, very long and ancient history. And mystery is involved in this as well. So I'm just sort of saying that although we need to keep certain things secret, we still have to be transparent enough to solve the problems that we need to solve so that they don't destroy what it is that we're trying to preserve. But people are not bold enough, or they're not that sort of wise enough to understand that you have to be clever. You have to work with different kinds of forces and positions and different things like that. That's what makes the dynamics of a very dynamic society. The variety, but everything at the end of the day is interconnected. The criminality is connected to the other part of the society.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Frank, for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Yeah.
Theresa.
Actually, I know, and again, this is not necessarily something that people will want to hear, but I'm going to put it out there anyway because I commenced my legal career in 1991, and I've seen the flow, I've seen the up and downs, and right now in my role as a senior person in Bank of America Merrill Lynch, I'm also observing certain patterns of behavior and so on. And with the way we do our spending, I think at some point in time there will be a decision that's going to be made by the United Kingdom to control our spending, or if they don't control our spending, they're going to force us to introduce taxation. And I know nobody don't want to hear that word taxation, but anyone who is paying close attention to what is happening here now, and anyone who is looking at a number of issues with the way our political system is set up, if they're paying attention, they're going to read the writing on the wall. But people are going to be afraid to even come out and say that, because the minute you breathe something like that, they're going to worry about the role of the financial industry. And that right now, as you know, takes care of 70% of our income.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're not doing is looking at that question and figuring out how they can ensure that that doesn't happen. That's my thing. And you're going to have to think outside of the box to actually, you can't answer that question without looking at certain other dynamics as well. And I don't intend to go into it on the show today, but anybody who's running for office should be able to convince the people and tell them, answer that kind of question that I've just raised, and tell the people how they intend to address something like that. In addition to all these others, as I said, cost of living, immigration, housing, all of those issues are really important factors as well. And I know that other communities look at someone said to me the other day, well, some of these people that are currently in office that's been there forever and a day, they don't have any skin in the game. And I said, but that's not true. They have children, they have grandchildren as well, and they want what's best for them as well. So the person says, well, if that were the case, they wouldn't be making certain decisions. I don't get into judgment or whatever.
But they might have built some generational wealth there, so they're not particularly necessarily worried.
Well, and another issue, when, opportunities that come to the island that should be available to the average man on the street, the first people who know about those opportunities are our politicians. And the rumor has been, and again, I'm being transparent, the rumor has been the politician takes advantage of those opportunities for themselves rather than making it possible for other people to benefit, unless they're going to give them the little crumbs and so on. We got to get past that, and I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend as though I have a monopoly on knowledge. I don't, but I know what I had an art discussion with Dr. McFeel and Roy the other day when they beat me to a pulp on this one man, one vote issue. They slaughtered me, the two of them, and I said, I'm going to go on with on a one man, one vote, and I talked about what I saw with one man, one vote, and Dr. McFeel has lived to come in. Boy, Theresa, I know we did you a little bad, but you were right. I'm always that person, and that's how my brain has always operated. I am actually looking and seeing the things that people aren't talking about, and I know it's there, But yeah, so this is something that, that I think that, at some point in time we have to pay close attention to that as well. But that's just my view. And anybody who's a thinking person in this island ought to ask every one of those persons that's running for office, how are they going to address it? Are they thinking about it? And if they are thinking about it, how will they propose to resolve it?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. We're going to go to our last commercial break before we finish off our discussion. We kind of stemmed a little bit away from the voter apathy for the younger generations.
I know.
Well, let's go to our last commercial break, and then we'll finish off with a business buzz.
I'm Michael Webster.
And I'm Denise Brown of Cayman Insurance Center.
Family is not the most important thing, it's everything.
We have worked with the community and their families on protecting themselves for the future.
Whether it's providing top-rated life insurance
or protecting your family's household investment.
From our family to yours, we understand and we care.
I'm Denise Brown. Call me at 814-7229.
And I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
We are Cayman Insurance Center.
Specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services at an affordable rate. We are Michael and
Denise at Cayman Insurance Center.
Call today.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Is your child between the ages of 6 and 11 years and you find their behaviors challenging at home, school, and in the community? SNAP, which stands for Stop Now and Plan, is a proven model that teaches children struggling with behavioral problems and their parents how to make better choices in the moment and learn how to keep problems small. This program is comprehensive, serving up to 7 families over 13 weeks. Contact Family Resource Center at frc@gov.ky to access this free program.
The Business Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Business Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and in studio, my guest is Theresa Pitcairn. We started discussing really about voter apathy, and especially with the younger generations. We kind of strayed off a little bit, but we're going to kind of go back into that just to finish off our conversation. And you were just telling me on the break about an experience that you had, so I want you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, so I was fortunate to be invited to the International Women's Forum for the last couple of years. Didn't make it last year, but I met with Gretchen Whitmer, who is the mayor of Michigan, in one of my sojourns. And there was a tweet that was being circulated, which she raised. And of course, while she's talking about it, I'm on my phone checking it out. And she's saying that, when you choose a politician, it's not like getting into a marriage or a wedding with a politician, but it's more like using public transport. She says that, when if you're going to take the bus, you know where the bus is going to stop, you know the route that the bus is going to take, but you know and agree where that final destination will be. So she says, when you're choosing leaders, it's just like the bus might break down from time to time, or if you're on a train, that might break down from time to time. But when you get on the bus or on the train, it's taking you in a certain direction. So there may be issues here and there, but you know exactly where you're going. And that is what I would like our leaders to actually reflect when they're actually saying that, we are running and this is what we want to do and this is what the future will look like. So that's kind of like how I wanted to share that.
I like that analogy. Yeah. I know we had a WhatsApp caller call, and I'm sorry because somebody was distracted. So I'm going to ask that WhatsApp person to call back again. I believe I saw who was calling. So if you can give us a call one more time. We did see the call come in. I saw the call come in. So do try one more time. You got a couple minutes left. Theresa, I want to ask you, do you believe the young voters feel adequately represented in the political discourse?
They say that they don't because I was watching a podcast with you.
We do have the caller.
Go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let us take the caller. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Business Buzz.
Hello, good morning, Ms. Catherine. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How you doing? I know your voice now, Rambo. Thanks for calling the show and for listening.
Good morning to the guests. Yeah, up in the air. I'll be brief from Franklin this morning. Right? I call you Sunday yesterday talk show with my optics, right? However, the axis, political axis, specifically AXIS, right? Or was it the parties will cooperate, typically, right? Intervention. Before that, now, henceforth, Hart Street, public cure. That's the pivot line, right? In diametrically, right? The whole core of centralization, the concentration of power, right? That aside from that part of authority. You understand? So, when you're talking about Mr. Theresa talking about the UK, people have a tendency to feel, you understand that now? And people free to talk about autonomy, right? Right condition of self-government. If you got face future discrepancies, you know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I told you yesterday, these candidates are running now. I give them props because they avowed and they declared openly and they wasn't timidly. But I know time is the essence. So you can wrap up the talk show. You have a good day. God bless you.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
that.
you, Rambo.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Did you want to reflect on that, Theresa?
Well, Cayman is, well, it's like the port. Caymanians got some decisions to make and some tough decisions to make. And they have to really, really be careful about those decisions. You know, what it's going to cost. I'm not just saying cost financially, for example, with the port, but the way the cost benefits of retaining the relationship that they have with the UK now, the cost benefit of setting up a port and so on. Those are things that are, they are topical issues. They can be sorted out, but Caymanians should not simply rely on their leadership for the answers, because if you want to evaluate performance, I mean, for the last 3 decades, the facts are in their face. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation this morning about youth voter apathy if, you know, certain issues were taken into consideration over the last 3 decades. So I rest my case.
All right. We got a comment that came in from Ora Connor, Mr. OC.
Okay.
I think it was just a small correction, really, saying that Gretchen, the lady that you had mentioned, is the governor of Michigan.
I looked it up. I double-checked
the governor of Michigan, not the mayor?
Yeah. It says governor of Michigan.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So thank you, OC. Thank you, OC, for that. I do believe we have another call coming in via WhatsApp, so we'll take that call. And good morning. Thank you for calling the Business Buzz.
Morning, ladies. Hope the new year is going great for y'all.
So far, yes. Happy New Year to you.
To you too.
Great to hear Miss Theresa as always. I'm not going to get into anything too heavy for the new year, but just to say that it seems like what we need in Cayman now is some type of national intervention, because the issues are many and big and heavy and getting heavier by the day. And a lot of people don't understand what is happening, how to cope, how to deal with the future. And a lot of people are reacting based on those factors.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think what we really need to try to get, and the answer is not just, you know, new faces in government.
Yeah.
Because unless those new faces take the time to educate and inform and do that same process to sort of, it's like a ship that is sinking, right? Everybody's saying the ship is sinking.
Mm-hmm.
But if everybody has a cup in their hand and starts bailing, we can probably get the water out. But not to say not doom and gloom. We live in a great place. This is a wonderful place to be. That is why I think people are concerned. We want to keep it that way. But it's more like we need some type of understanding, explanation, so people can get a grasp on what the big picture is. And then we can start to determine where we're going forward. It's almost like a Vision 2008 type of thing all over again that we need. So unless that will happen, which that will take a big decision, I guess, there are so many big decisions, from environment and employment and all these things that are pressurizing people. And people, as I said, are reacting based on their own individual situations, which is understandable. But the big picture needs to be looked at and a clear plan going forward. As you mentioned, do we want to reverse one man, one vote? There are lots of big issues that we need to decide on.
But what, and those are really, really great points. And, kudos to you having the, courage to actually say that. But what type of guardrails do you envision us actually introducing? And not just because it's an election, but to actually obey some of the current criticism that we now have. Because that's go on. Sorry, my apologies. What were you saying?
No problem. Well, the first guardrail, which is long overdue, is very simple. And a lot of people object to this for some reason, is the formal recognition or definition of what is a native indigenous Caymanian. And why do I say that? Because many of the things that are happening now are occurring because we probably have one of the smallest native populations in the world. When I left high school, there were like 12,000 people living here. And I'm sure there are no more than 15, 20,000 at the most actual generational Caymanians existing right now. But yet those are the same people out of the entire country that are not seeming to benefit from the
successes,
the prosperity, that we have built from the 60s and 70s and 80s especially. And they're the same ones that said, that are being told, we don't want you to work in a jewelry store selling perfumes and jewelry because we can get a cheaper work permit for someone from Timbuktu. So your grandchild now at this stage of development can't even get a basic sales job, entry-level job. So who are we? The question is who is benefiting? Who's benefiting?
But how? I mean, because that's also a mindset. You see, if it costs less to pay somebody $6 or $7 an hour, knowing their situation and so on, it's what it is. It's indentured labor. Let's just call it for what it is. And
I call it slavery. Slavery is
indentured labor is a euphemism.
Well, slavery didn't get anything at all other than the lashes. But I mean, be that as it may. But how do you actually encourage those of us that are in the business? Because what people will say to me, well, it's real only Caymanians that's doing that, which I know is not true. But how do we change the mindset? Because with that change, where, if you increase the cost, increase the minimum wage from say $6, $7, or $8, that costing will be attached and passed on to the average consumer. So and when you were talking about asking me about some of the things that one would recommend, and that factors into one of the things that I'm thinking about as well. But how are you going to change the mindset when that is just business operating efficiently for them? Because what would you do to bring about that type of change in the mindset and responsibility?
Yes. Well, I wanted to just add a bit more to the first point about the defining Caymanian, because that is a big issue, but no one seems to think it's a big issue. But it's more of a mindset and an attitude or a national pride. It's not about entitlement, but guess what? We are entitled. Where else in the world can we be entitled? We can only be entitled in our own country. So the finger pointing by people who have come here to say we were entitled, yes, we are. Every country has their indigenous people, and until we acknowledge that, we will always be lumped into the level playing field argument where my child, who is, I don't know, just for example, 18, 20, 22, with a new degree from wherever, has to compete on the level playing field with John Brown with a master's degree from Africa, Philippines, Timbuktu. No, it's not a level play. Every country in the world, all of our neighbors, Jamaica, everywhere, looks after their own people first, even if it's a 20-year-old with just out of college, compared to a 40-year-old master's degree, doctorate graduate from somewhere else. We have to give our own the benefit to develop. But going back to the cost of living, the minimum wage thing that you mentioned, the business side of it, that's a different kettle of fish. But everything affects the cost of living. And of course, we are almost zero taxation jurisdiction, so government revenues are dependent on a lot of those things as well. So that is a conversation. I don't want to say what's the solution. That's a conversation we all need to have. But I know that we as a country have evolved so quickly that our people have not yet learned the ways to live that the first world countries do. That includes generational planning, budgeting, the value of education and investing and holding on to your family land. And we're still in survival mode that we were from the 60s and 50s. A lot of us are. So before we can say, the price of bread should be X, we need to know, well, what happens if the price of bread goes to $10? Do we just accept it? No, there are things you can do as consumers as well.
Exactly.
So there are many factors. There are many factors to consider. But at the basis of it all, most countries again have a dual system, even a dual economic system. Even Cuba has, Jamaica, all around the region. All countries look out for their own people economically as well. They do that by restricting property sale, for example, compared to leasing. They do it by offering, benefits and discounts and even consumer goods to their own people.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have to cut you. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I have to cut you because we got to wrap the show up. Thank you. You've had so many great thoughts.
That's true.
Thank you so much for contributing and calling.
You know who it is?
I know who it is,
Okay.
but I won't say it on air.
All right, that's fine.
So thank you so much for calling. And I do want to say a couple of points here. In December 10th is when I had the show that Theresa that you had listened to with the millennials on, talking about the voter apathy amongst millennials and Gen Z. And at that time, those who were ages 24 and under, at that time, we had 929 Caymanians registered to vote, ages 29 and under. Now that number has increased by 118 electors to 1,047. That's for ages 24 and under. And that number is as of January 1st, 2025. The third smallest group, which is voters between the ages of 25 to 34, that represents 3,227 electors, which is a small increase of 33 voters only compared to October 1st.
Wow.
So we now got to look at that 25 to 34 age group to try to get them more involved, understand where they're coming from and what their disillusionment may be. A reminder that the deadline to register to vote is January 15th. I will be having another millennial from the Link Up podcast. Actually, somebody just walked in here from the Link Up podcast in our studios, but he's going to be joining me from 7:30 to 8 a.m. on Thursday, followed by the elections office on Thursday. So please do tune in. We're going to be carrying this conversation. And Theresa, if you want to leave us with any lasting thoughts.
There were two things that came to mind as I was listening to the gentleman. It's unfortunate that we don't have it. It's not mandatory for us to have civic classes in our schools. I remembered when I went to York to do my first degree, and I joined the Caribbean Students Association. I was the only person that had never read Caribbean literature.
Oh,
the
wow.
only person. Of course, I wasn't going to be embarrassed and can't be able to talk about a number of our Caribbean leaders and stuff like that and the literature. One of the first ones that came to mind was In the Castle of My Skin. And I remembered actually listening to Dr. Frank and Jeff Cresswell talking about that. So I was quiet, didn't say nothing, but I says, I know that one. But yeah, that is one thing that I think that is really, really important to ensure that we have some type of, make it mandatory for us to know who we are, have pride about who we are, our past, and, so on and so forth. And I want to say it's unreasonable to expect people to vote if they don't understand the power of the vote.
Yeah.
And that is something that we need to really, really work on. And that's it for me.
All right.
Looney Tunes.
I agree with you on both points there, and I think I'm going to have to get some literature references from you as well, something for me to read up on. Thank you so much to all our listeners for joining us, and we're going to go to the slightly after 9 a.m. headline news. Sponsored by Cayman Insurance Center, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. And Kirk Market, experience a world of choice. And by JGP Janitorial, lose the mop, they'll clean the slop. JGP